Alright. Hello again, Avengers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 151. Guys, we're into our, I guess, 6th month of this, if numbers will work. I don't know. Done this 151 to the times, or 150 times before this. So, today, I saw a video recently. Like, when I say recently, I mean it literally stopped playing like a minute or two before I hit record, because I was listening to it while I was setting up my computer and everything. And the video itself was from Comic Book Resources, which I will watch some of their stuff because they're not quite as like crazy biased against Wizard of the Coast as most YouTube channels that kind of cover tabletop RPG stuff is. Probably because they cover a lot more than just tabletop RPG stuff. Again, it's called comic book. But they had a video about how to save Candela Obscura. If you're unaware, Candela Obscura is a tabletop RPG that was created by Darrington Press, which is the publishing arm of Critical Role, and it's a gothic horror, heavily narrative based tabletop RPG. And the thing with Candela Obscura is the game itself is not designed for long multi-year campaigns like something like D&D is designed. Like, if you're going to go from level 1 to level 20 in D&D, it is going to take you years to go that entire gamut, depending on how often you get to play, how long you get to play each at a time. It is a very long process. I know people that have spent 6, 8, 9 years going from a level 1 to 20 D&D game. Candela Obscura is just not meant for something like that. There's not anywhere near as much growth possible. Like in D&D, there are 20 levels that you can grow. Candela Obscura, you don't have that many quote-unquote levels. They don't technically use levels. I can't remember what their advancement system is. But it's significantly smaller. The reason behind that being the game is designed to be relatively, for lack of a better term, relatively deadly. Like, when you play, you're just going to be collecting wounds and things like that eventually force you to retire your character. So, Comic Book Resources was talking about how Candela Obscura, Critical Role actually has a live play series where they play Candela Obscura, and they've been doing it for a little while now. Most recently, they had a live event. I can't remember where it was, but they rented out a smaller theater, and they played Candela Obscura live. And for the first time in recent memory, the venue wasn't sold out. And when you actually look at viewing numbers and stuff like that for Candela Obscura, they're significantly lower than the viewing numbers that Critical Role gets on a regular the Thursday night where they're playing the main campaign. And so Comic Book Resource was basically trying to kind of brainstorm ideas that would make Candela Obscura. Oh, and when they upload them to YouTube, they don't get anywhere near as many views on YouTube either. And so Candela Obscura was trying to come up with, or not Candela Obscura, Comic Book Resources was trying to come up with a couple tips that Critical Role could use to make Candela Obscura more popular and last longer. And the first thing that they talk about specifically is, well, one thing that they don't need is an increase in quality. The quality of Candela Obscura is absolutely amazing. And then the entire, like, I don't know, maybe a minute of the video or 30 seconds. Like, it's not a long video, first of all. But the entire time they're talking about the quality of the show, it is entirely based on costumes, sets, visual effects, how it looks. And it got me thinking, because this is an extremely common thought process in the live play scene, and that is you are only as good as you look. And the good live plays are good because they look so pretty. And I so vehemently disagree with that idea, and I think it's a false causality kind of the thing. We as humans like to draw connections from things. We don't actually like true randomness. We want everything to have a purpose and a cause. And so what's extremely common is humans in general will see two things that are unrelated. And they will find a way to connect them in their head. You know, I was walking down the street, and I smelled this kind of strange smell, and then I twisted my ankle. So obviously, the reason that I twisted my ankle was this smell. The smell must have done something, kind of tripped up my brain, and it caused me to kind of miss where I was stepping. No, you can actually just randomly twist your ankle with no prompts or anything like that. It wasn't a lapse of concentration or something. Every so often, your muscles just don't work the way they're supposed to. But we as humans just like to make connections, and so there's actually a logical fallacy that has specifically been named the false causation fallacy. And basically what that is, you look at two things and you say, well, obviously that one caused that one. The example that they give on, there's a logical fallacy webpage that I really, really enjoy. I think it's called like Your Logical Fallacy Is, and then it lists a bunch of different logical fallacies. The example that they give on there is 400 years ago, or I guess 500 years ago, in the kind of age of sail and age of piracy, there was significantly more pirates on the planet than there are now. Also, the overall temperature of the Earth is higher now than it was 400 or 500 years ago. Ergo, pirates are so cool that they cool the planet. Now, anyone listening to that knows that that's complete and utter nonsense. But there are a lot of times where, simply because people don't understand everything going on, they will make very, very similar connections. And I think this thing of quality looking pretty somehow corresponds to the show being a high quality show. I think that's where it comes from, because when you look at the big names in tabletop role playing live plays, if we go back, I don't know, maybe like, let's go pre-pandemic, 2019, 2018, Critical Role is going really, really strong. Dimension 20 already exists, but there were also other things like high rollers used to be a really, really big thing until there was an issue that we're not going to talk about. Suffice it to say, Adam Coble screwed up majorly. Or maybe Adam Coble didn't screw up and that's just the person that he is and we just finally figured it out. Who knows? There was... what was the one from... Was Hit Me JP? There was quite a few different live plays going on, especially when we go back to like the multi-channel network age. Like I know Dodger Lee, now Dodger Thorne, because she married Strippin. Dodger Thorne and Jesse Cox used to work with It Me JP on a regular basis on live plays, and you could find live plays everywhere. And you still can, but they were really, really big. And there was Chris Perkins' Dice Camera Action with Pro Jared and Holly Conrad and Anna Prosser, and I can never remember the third guy. He played the Bard. Anyway, there used to be a lot more. And when you looked at the quote-unquote quality of them, they varied kind of wildly. You look at something like Critical Role. Critical Role had sets, and they had a studio and things like that, and they had a remarkably high-quality looking production. And fun fact, I don't know if I've ever specifically stated this. The current trend of live plays where you have like a camera pointed at the players and you see like the players lined up here, either in like one column or two columns or things like that, and the DM here. Zach Eubank effectively pioneered that particular style that most live plays that people are all in the same room adopt now. That was entirely Zach Eubank, the original producer for the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel. He created that format, and everybody uses it now. But even if you look at like the really, really early Critical Role episodes, they very, very quickly went from a bunch of people sitting at cheap tables to having a backdrop for the DM and a really fancy Dungeon Master screen and close-up cameras and all that stuff. Like, they very, very quickly turned into something very, very high quality. But they were insanely popular without any of that stuff. And the reason they now have an entire studio with a soundscape and a lightscape that Mercer can control was because they already have a really high quality product, and they reinvested the money that they made from their very high quality product to add additional quality. But if Critical Role, like if they're, knock on wood that this never ever happens because they're wonderful, amazing people and they would never deserve something like this. Say their studio burns to the ground, they lose all their money, but they still want to do this. They could literally set up card tables and iPhones, and they would still be incredibly popular, because the thing that makes Critical Role such a high quality show is not that it looks pretty. It's that they have put a lot of work and effort into creating a very, very high quality show. All of the actors, all the players on there fully commit to their roles. They actually do the work of coming in and, having their character sheets there, knowing what's going on in the campaign, actively listening to the other people while they're role playing. These are all things that a lot of people don't realize that they do, but if you've ever played your own D&D game and noticed that it just doesn't seem to be working the same as Critical Role, those are some of the reasons why. If your players are showing up and they haven't thought about the game since the last session, that is going to be a detriment for the game, because now they have to basically remember everything that happened the last time. If when people are role-playing, other people are, messing on their phones or, just looking at their character sheet and figuring out what they're going to do next, the game is going to drag along because people can't they can't throw ideas off of each other. It's the difference between having a scene with multiple actors and having a collection of soliloquies where a bunch of actors are on stage together. So all of that stuff makes Critical Role incredibly fun to watch. Now, am I saying that the quality of their stuff doesn't help at all? Absolutely not. But you don't need to be Critical Role to do most of the stuff that they do. Set design and stuff like that, that takes money. But being able to use soundscapes and stuff like that, I do that. I have no money. I'm on disability. I'm on very, very extremely low disability, because when I finally got my disability approved, I hadn't worked in like 3 years. And the longer it's been since you worked, the less they'll pay you. So yeah, brain just completely gone. Being able to create soundscapes, not a difficult thing, doesn't cost you a penny. You can do it on Roll20. That's where I did do it, and I use a bunch of free songs and stuff like that to do it with. It's very, very simple, very, very easy. It just takes time and effort to do it. Lighting effects and stuff like that, again, that costs money. But I don't think it really adds that much to it. Again, I run my games online, and I'm a huge believer in the idea that online games can be just as immersive and just as impactful to players as an in-person game. I know that is not a popular idea in the tabletop RPG space, where people go, no. You will never be able to have as good a game online as you will when you're all in the same room. It just doesn't work. It does. I've done it. I've had my players weep in agony and joy during my online sessions. I've had players... I still have players that look forward to every single Giga game, that have become incredibly close personal friends, and I have never met any of my players in person. Ever. There's not a single person that I currently play D&D with that I have ever met in person. And they're some of my closest friends I have, which may say a lot about me. But so yeah, the idea that Candela Obscura is a quality show because it looks really pretty and they have amazing costumes and all, it's not. The first time Geek and Sundry did, I think they called it Domains of Dread. It was their first kind of foray into horror tabletop RPGs, and it was unbelievably successful. It was so successful that it spawned a show on Alpha that went for 2 seasons. And that, for the people that fervently support and defend Alpha to this day, Dread is one of the things that they bring up, is like, see, Dread never would have happened without Alpha because we couldn't afford to make it. No, actually it could, and it did. The first Dread episode happened on International Tabletop Day, and it was filmed for next to nothing. Because it literally was just a bunch of people sitting around a fake campfire with a single camera shooting them all. It was unbelievably simple to film. It was it was such a good experience that it spawned an entire show. And again, every time Hollywood people get their hands on something that's popular, they have this idea of, well, if we shove more money into it, that makes it better. And so if you look at the original Dread versus the Alpha version of Dread, the original Dread, I think people came in costumes, but they were really, really, if they did come in costumes, they were really, really simple, kind of closet cosplay. If you never heard that term, it's basically where instead of actually designing a cosplay, you go into your closet and you find things that you think kind of represent a character that you want to cosplay, but you're not really looking to be a one-to-one recreation. You're looking to kind of give off the feeling of that character. They didn't have really amazing costumes. They didn't have this massively elaborate set because they had to be able to take it down for the rest of Tabletop Day. And it was still unbelievably amazing and fantastic. And then as soon as Legendary got their hands on it, they had to create an entire set, and they gave everyone costumes and makeup, and there were smoke machines, and there was all this stuff. And none of that made the show better. It made it look cooler, don't get me wrong, but it didn't make the show better. It didn't create a higher quality product. It created a prettier looking product. And eventually, what happens is, as they invest more money in it, they have to make more money out of it in order for it to be successful. That was one of the biggest issues with Alpha, was the fact that it was so expensive and it was so over the top that there was no possible way it could ever have been profitable. And alpha was basically what happens when you throw money into Twitch. Had they skipped alpha and they had just focused on the Twitch channel, again, Critical Role has already shown Twitch can be unbelievably lucrative. But they couldn't accept that. They took something because Twitch is for poor people. We are Hollywood. We have to do something big and massive. And you eventually get what's referred to as diminishing returns. It's where you put the same amount of input in, but you get less output. And I think we are starting to see the diminishing returns as far as kind of quality for tabletop RPG live plays goes. Because, again, Candela Obscura is probably the most designed live play that they've ever done. Everyone comes in not just costumes, in extremely elaborate period costumes. They have this amazing, mind-blowingly awesome set. They have really high quality to talent that I assume, because of what I know about Critical Role, that they're probably paying relatively well. I'm not saying that these the people that are going on there are getting like $1 million a day or something like that, or even something that's similar to what you would make on like a single episode of a popular sitcom. But they're probably paying better than average for the tabletop RPG space, because that's the kind of people that Critical Role are. However, the show itself, again, as far as I can tell, is a very good show. I've not watched any of them, despite the fact that after, because I own Candela Obscura, I think I have the book around here somewhere, and I have a PDF copy of it as well, and I'm getting real close to buying the Demiplane version of it as well, because I just really like Demiplane as like a place to store characters and stuff like that. Yeah, I would love to watch it. It is a tabletop RPG that was designed by actors for actors, and so everything about it really excites me from kind of an acting and storytelling perspective. So I think that's really, really cool. However, it's not gaining an audience, and they can pour more and more money. They can make it smell-o-vision, and it's never going to reach as large an audience as the main campaign, for a number of reasons. Probably the biggest of which is Candela Obscura is an extremely niche tabletop RPG that uses an extremely niche genre, and it's kind of difficult to follow. Even if you have the book in front of you, watching a highly narrative-based game gets very confusing very quickly, because either roles will be infrequent enough that you don't understand why they're happening, or when the roles do happen, the rules just don't seem to make sense instantly. Whereas something like D&D 5th edition is very, very easy to follow. It is extremely popular. It is in the largest genre of tabletop RPGs, and it has millions of people in its fan base, hundreds of millions. So yeah, the idea that, again, putting all of this money into it and making it look really pretty will somehow, I think it's becoming detrimental at this point. Because the more money you put into it, the more money it has to make before it can be considered a success from a business standpoint. And I just don't think it needs it. Would Candela Obscura be just as entertaining if the cast came in street clothes? Absolutely. If they played around the same table that already exists for Critical Role, Absolutely. If they played around a card table, would it still be enjoyable? Absolutely. This is all just stuff that adds additional cost without really making a better product. It's a prettier product. Again, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I've ever met a person that go, "Oh my god, the reason I watch Dimension 20 is Brennan's shirts are just amazing. They're like, he has the greatest shirts ever, and I tune in every single week to see the shirt that he's wearing." They don't. People watch live play shows to get immersed in the story, get immersed in the characters, watch a bunch of friends have fun together. These are all reasons that they watch. Costumes are not one of them. Sets are not one of them. Does it make it cooler? Does it make it prettier? Absolutely. But I think we need to get past this idea that something that is more expensive is inherently better. They've actually done studies. This is one of the studies I learned about. I actually had to read the study when I was in college for one of my marketing courses, specifically when he was talking about pricing strategies. Fun fact, for anyone that doesn't know, the price that you pay for a product has nothing to do with how much it costs to make it, and hasn't for 50 years. Pricing and the price that you pay for an item is decided by the marketing team. And it follows what's called a pricing strategy. There's a bunch of different pricing strategies that you can use. All of them focus on what that price makes the product look like. You can go for a penetrative pricing strategy where you basically go into a market and you try to undersell everybody else so that you can gain as big a hold on the market as you can, priming yourself as the one that's the best bang for your buck. You can also use what's called a premium pricing strategy, where you price yourself either equal to or slightly below the highest priced things in the market. And the reason that a premium pricing strategy works is people associate quality with price. And specifically, they simply associate quality with numbers. There's a study, and the study's been repeated over and over and over again. It's one of the reasons why it's such a solid study. For anyone that doesn't know, part of experimental design to make a quality experiment is the experiment has to be measurable in some way. You have to be able to get a something that is measurable out of it, and it has to be repeatable. Other people should be able to take your experimental design, run the experiment on them on their own, and achieve the same results. If you can't do those things, then the experiment itself is considered faulty, or the data that you get from it is considered bad data. So this particular study has been repeated many, many times. It's a fascinating study. What they did is they take a bunch of people and they put them in a room. In the room, there are various tables, and each table has either one or multiple items on it. And next to the items, there is a collection of random numbers. Now, the random numbers are placed all in a line, but there's no decimal points, there's no dollar signs or anything. They are literally just a random collection of numbers set beside each one of these items. And what they do is they have people come in, and they ask them to rate the quality of each of these items. And they can look at them. I think in some versions of it, they can like pick them up and stuff like that. They just basically rate the quality of each of the items. And what they have found time and time again is the items with a bigger number, where the number value of those random numbers, when you put them together, is a higher amount, is always ranked as higher quality. Again, these are just random numbers, and they will switch up where those random numbers are put with different groups, and it always follows. We as humans have learned that big number is good. And so when we see something that we think is expensive, we automatically think, oh, that is really, really good. And that's why Comic Book Resources, when they're talking about the quality of Candela Obscura, the only things they talked about is the stuff that looks expensive, the stuff that they couldn't do on their own. And that's what makes it a quality show. And it just doesn't. We're starting to see the effect of diminishing returns in the video game world too. When you look at Baldur's Gate 3, Baldur's Gate 3 was not a AAA game. It was a relatively small game. However, it is an amazing game. The quality of everything in there is phenomenal. And when I say the quality, I'm not talking about, oh, all of the textures look really pretty. They have a physics engine in there that allows you to do things that you shouldn't be able to do. One of my favorite examples is Matt Mercer trying to get... Matt Mercer played Baldur's Gate 3, and there's clips of it all over the internet. Matt Mercer is trying to get into a tower, and he can't get in on the ground level. And so what he does is he goes and he finds all of these boxes and barrels, and he just stacks them one on top of the other and slowly climbs up them with his character. And then he takes a teleporting arrow, which is basically you shoot the arrow and wherever it lands, you teleport there. And he used that to get into this tower. That was not anything that the game designers thought should be possible. They had not designed the game to be able to do that. However, they designed a physics engine that could handle you stacking multiple things and standing on them and things like that. Like, that worked in their physics engine. And so that's what I mean when it's very high quality. However, as content creep started happening, we started seeing problems with the Giga game. It launched with a bunch of bugs. Not nearly as many as any AAA game out there, but it did have some issues. The third act was not good when the game launched. It's not well written and stuff like that, but they had spent so much money and they'd had so many programmers and so many things that people were like, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever. And it was a very amazing game. But it cost nowhere near as much as something like Destiny 2, which is significantly a less quality product, especially if you look at it now compared to how it was when it first launched. It's just not as high a quality product. There's not as much to do in it. There's not as many different things. And Destiny 2 has been around for 6 or 7 years, something like that. Like, it's been around for a while. So it has all of that other content. Well, not all of it, because they regularly will just rip content out. So you can't play it anymore. So my theory is Larian Studios crossed the threshold of diminishing returns as far as investment into a game. Eventually, you can have too many programmers. You can have too many producers. You can put too much money into a game, and it no longer gives you good results. And it just starts making the game worse and worse and worse and worse, because in order to justify that expense, they have to find a way for that game to make that much more money. And it becomes an exponential problem eventually, because it's like, well, if I'm going to be putting in $10 million, I don't want $10 million back. I want $50 million back. I want a good return on my investment. And then as more and more people get in, it starts going, well, yes, we spent $200 million on this game, but we want it to make $7 billion, because everybody wants at least everybody wants at least a 10-time return on their investment. And then we also want to be able to do other things with it. And I think the same thing is true about the tabletop RPG space. So many people are thinking that you can never be Critical Role or Dimension 20 or something unless you have your own set and everybody plays in the same room. And it's just not true. Dice Camera Action, the only reason it ended, and Dice Camera Action was literally Chris Perkins playing at home, or possibly in his office, I don't know, with Anna, Jared, Holly, and the fourth one that I can't remember his name on Zoom. That's all it was. And their layout was their faces with kind of a cool backdrop. And that was it. They didn't have complex sets. They didn't have, multi-million-dollar stream setups, though some of them might have. Because again, all of our, most of them were already streamers. Like my stream setup is not multi-million dollars. I have my microphone, I think, is like $130, $140. And I have like $100 webcam. And that's my big stream setup, is I've spent a couple $100 on it. Oh, and I've got lights. I have a I've got a light right above me that's built into the room that I'm in. I specifically chose this location because there's fluorescent lights directly above me that I replaced one of them with I've got something on my glasses and it's driving me nuts. And I replaced one of them with an LED light. I would have replaced both of them with LEDs, but the something in there doesn't like LEDs on one side. There's a term for it, but if I put an LED in there, it turns into a strobe light. And then I've got an LED light there and an LED light there, both of which cost me less than $100. I think they're both like $20 or $40 lights. So my entire stream setup is, I don't know, $400, $500 that I purchased over years. It's not exorbitantly expensive. And I can do quite a lot with it. My Roll20, I do have a subscription to Roll20 now because I got one for free, and then I decided I liked having the subscription, so I just decided to renew it when my free one ran out. And I've really, really enjoyed it. And then I've got a D&D Beyond subscription because it makes it easier for me to be able to run my D&D stuff. I can share books with my players and things like that, and it works very, very well. So yeah, I do not have an extremely expensive thing, but if you watch, not my D&D streams because they're not that crazy, but if you watch Realms of the Wild, Elias, one of the players, he went and he designed our overlay for us. We have this amazing overlay that also brings up character cards. We can show the map. We can have chat integration. Like, there's a lot of different things that we can do with the overlays that he designed, and they're wonderful and amazing. His expertise, if we paid him for it, probably would not have been exorbitantly expensive, or probably would not have been cheap, but he wouldn't have been exorbitantly expensive. And I have no idea if he did get paid for it or not. I don't know. But, yeah, like if you want really high quality custom overlays, you can pay someone to design them for you. It's generally less than $100, depending on what you're looking for. And how crazy you want to get with them. And then you can make a really, really high quality, amazing show. Again, Dice Camera Action lasted for, I want to say 3 or 4 years. And the only reason that it ended was there was some drama that happened with Pro Jared and his now ex-wife. And his ex-wife went scorched earth and decided to try and burn down everything Jared had ever attempted to make. She succeeded on quite a bit. Dice Camera Action got thrown out. His character in his character from Dice Camera Action had actually been put into Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, which is an idle game on Steam. It got taken out of there and replaced with a generic character and stuff. Like, she succeeded in burning down a lot of the things that were most important to him, but he still exists. He streams on Twitch. He still has 2 different YouTube channels that he uploads to regularly, plus a stream VOD channel. He's still going. Dice Camera Action died, but the characters, Holly's character Strix shows up on Acquisition Incorporated relatively often. Anna's character, what's her character's name? She's the paladin. I can't remember Anna's character's name. She shows up in Acquisitions Incorporated fairly often as well. So, yeah, Acquisitions Incorporated is not an extremely expensive thing, and it pioneered everything. Probably the most expensive thing that they do is the costumes that they make and whatever nonsense they allow Chris Perkins to build each year. But it's it used to be a once a year thing. Now it's like 3 or 4 times a year. But the big expensive one is generally just at PAX West. So yeah, I wanted to talk about this idea that if you throw money into something, it automatically makes it better. It doesn't. A lot of times it actively makes it worse. And the idea that Candela Obscura needs to become stronger or something like that, I just don't think is a thing. Candela Obscura is a niche RPG in a niche genre, and it is designed to be small, short, little mini campaigns. I don't think in a year we're going to have a Candela Obscura series running on Critical Role anymore. And I don't think they need to. They created a cool tabletop RPG, and that's it. That's all they needed to do. And it will continue to exist. They may create supplements and stuff for it, but Candela Obscura is never going to replace the main campaign. I don't think Candela Obscura is going to be something that they do forever, but they will probably bring it back on a fairly regular basis for like one-shots and things like that, because that's where Candela Obscura shines. When Daggerheart finally comes out of playtest, it's not going to replace the main campaign. They will probably do a Daggerheart campaign, and it will probably get similar numbers to Candela Obscura, though probably a little bit higher because Daggerheart, first of all, is a longer Giga game. There's more to Daggerheart than there is Candela Obscura. And it is fantasy as opposed to cosmic horror. So it fits more in with what the majority of tabletop RPGs are. So, yeah, and the most popular tabletop RPGs are, for the most part, in the fantasy genre. So, yeah. Anyway, like I said, I just wanted to talk about something that just really, really frustrates me. Thinking that, in order to have a good live play, you have to spend lots of money and build a set and have $1,000 cameras. You don't. You can record it on an iPhone if you need to. iPhones have remarkably good cameras. Phones, in general, have remarkably good cameras. The camera on my, I've got a Galaxy, I got a Galaxy S23 Plus, I think is the one I've got now. Whatever last year's model was, I got the Plus version of it. So I went with the baseline for my previous one, and it kind of shot me in the foot because there were issues with the baseline model that they fixed with the Plus model. And yeah, I can get amazing quality. Even on the front-facing camera, which is the shit camera, I can get good quality. If I use the back camera, I get better quality than I get on my webcam here. So, yeah, stop focusing so much on how something looks. Look at the quality of the acting, the quality of the writing itself. Because that's what brings people back, not because Taliesin Jaffe looks amazing in period clothing, which he does. But that's not why people come back. Anyway, it's all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.